Hi, I'm Nick from zappycode.com, and I'd like to share a little tutorial about whenever you're trying to list things in SwiftUI, you've probably seen that annoying error. It says the things in this list must be identifiable. Why is that, and how can we fix it? I'm going to show you right now. So I have a little example project here. I just did the blank Xcode project that you can start with. The only thing that I have special here is an array called foods, and I've put some of my favorite foods in there. Pizza, cheeseburger, sushi. You can tell I have a great diet. So let's say I want to list out this information. All right, I'll get rid of this little hello world example. I'll make a capital list, and in the parentheses, I'm going to put my array, which is foods. Then I'll do my curly brackets here. And then here at the end of the opening curly bracket, I have to say what the term is that I want for each food as we loop through it. So I'm going to simply say food space in. So you can see the array is foods with an S, and then the singular item as we loop through is going to be represented by food singular. So this is just a bunch of strings. So I figure I'm just going to make a text view here, and I'm going to put inside of this whatever the particular food is, and I'm doing this, and I say, great, but we get this nasty thing from Xcode. Let's expand this over so we can read it. The initializer requires that string conform to identifiable. So what SwiftUI is yelling at us for is it's saying, hey, I know you want to list these individual strings here inside of this array, but it needs some help because it's saying, you might have two strings that have the exact same thing. Imagine if we had sushi listed twice, like we had it listed at the front and the back. There could potentially be some issues about which sushi is which, and it's just saying you need to have some sort of way to identify the uniqueness of each of the items inside of the list. So the easy fix in order to get over this is to make a little struct to represent our food items here. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a struct. So we're going to say lowercase struct space and then give our struct name. We're representing food. So I'm going to do capital food here, and we'll do our little curly brackets here. And the first thing that we've got to put inside of here is the identifiable part. We got to say, we have to give SwiftUI something to say this makes this thing unique. So you should make the name of this. This is really important that you do have this name. It has to be var ID. Technically, I think you can change this if you do some sort of trickery, but really you should just stick with the name ID, and then you need to set it something that can be uniquely identifiable. So technically, you could make this something like an int, and just as you create your food items, you could say like this is food number 1, 2, 3, 4. But the really special type here that you can use is a UUID. So what is a UUID? It's a universally unique identifier. It's a mouthful to say it is a completely unique string of letters and numbers that will never be duplicated. The cool thing about making a UUID is you don't have to worry about another UUID being the same. Like if we were to make this an int and we were going to list out our different objects here, we might be saying 1, 2, 3, 4, and we might forget our numbering and accidentally put 1 for each, and then we would get a nasty bug with SwiftUI. Whereas the UUID, we do not have to worry about that. Okay. So we're not going to set this equal to the UUID. We're just going to say this is of type UUID with a little colon there. The next piece that we want to have here is we want to have a variable that represents the name of the food. So I'm just going to put a variable here called name, and this is going to be of type string. Okay. So we've got our food struct that really the important thing to us is this name. For SwiftUI, the important thing is the ID so that it can identify it. And the last piece before we move forward here is we have to make sure that the struct, as it says here, conforms to identifiable. So it's not just enough to have this var ID, which is a UUID. We have to say colon and say that this is going to follow the identifiable protocol. Identifiable. I can't believe I'm misspelling this. It starts ID. There we go. Autocomplete saving my life. Okay, so now we have these structs, and now we can make instances of this struct and replace these strings that we have. So let's go ahead and clear that out. So we've got an empty array, and I'm going to make one of these food instances. So I'm going to say capital food with an opening parentheses, and if we hit enter on the autocomplete, it's saying, hey, give me an ID and a name, and this will be good. So I'm going to do capital UUID with an open and close parentheses, and it says it needs a string. This is the easy part. This is where we put something like pizza. Okay? So with this in place, now we have an array of things that conform to identifiable, The last thing that we just got to fix here is that instead of just referencing food for the text view, we have to say food dot, and then we want to access that name there. So we're going to say food dot name. Okay. So let's go ahead and hit resume here and see what this looks like on the little preview. I'll give it a second here. Xcode, we believe in you. Xcode, we believe in you. Okay, so Xcode finally got the preview working here. And look, there's our little pizza showing up in a list. So we now know that this works. And for example, if we just copy this pizza a couple times, if I go here and say, I just want to add pizza a few times, put commas in between each of them, we're going to get a couple of pizzas showing up here. So look at that. There's all of our pizza. Now, the one issue that I have with this is each time that we want to make a new food. So let's say we have our one pizza and I want to add another piece of food. So I'm going to say food with the opening parentheses. Oh, I need to add this UUID thing again. Each time we make a new food object, we're going to have to put in UUID with the parentheses each time. And that's not what we want. Each time we make food, really what we're interested in is just displaying the string. That's all we really wanted from the start. So we can make this much better for ourselves by providing a customized initializer for the struct. So remember, structs, whenever we want to make an instance of a struct, we have to provide all the variables here, the ID, the name. But if we make a custom initializer, initializer is just a fancy word to say, when I'm creating a struct, you can add your own custom rules and code in there so that you can make it a little bit easier for yourself. So if we want to do that here, we're just going to simply start typing init. And as far as the autocomplete goes, go for the one that says initializer declaration. And so we've got init. It says, do you want any parameters? We want to take in the name, but that's it. We don't need the ID. So we're just going to say name, colon, and say that that is of type string. And then here inside of this init function, we're going to say, okay, ID is equal to a new UUID object so that each time we create a food object, we don't have to type this out. And then we'll take this name that was passed into us and put it here inside of the name property. So to access this name, since these two things have the name, we're going to say self.name to reference this name. And we're going to say this is equal to this name that came here as a parameter. Okay. So with this in place, you'll see how much easier it is to make these food instances. So I'm going to say, I want to make food. And look at this, the autocomplete. We just have to provide the name of the food. So in this case, I'm going to say, I want pizza. Let's go ahead and make another food object. This one, I'm going to do a cheeseburger. Excellent. And then finally, let's get some sushi in here. So we'll make another thing of food. And we'll say the name on this one is sushi. Excellent. Okay, so with this in place, let's go ahead and see what this looks like. Just confirm everything works here. Oh, and look at that. Outside of a preview bug that makes this cheeseburger go up here, we can fix this by doing this little auto preview or like interactive part of the preview here. But there you have it. To me, this is what I've found to be the nicest way to list things that, really we just wanted to list strings from the get-go. But again, SwiftUI requires that we have something identifiable. To me, this is the best way to conform that doesn't annoy you each time that you want to make those instances. So if you enjoyed this tutorial, I think you'd really like my SwiftUI course that I just released on my website, zappycode.com. Go to zappycode.com, check out the courses, and you'll find it there. Thanks a ton for following along. Hope you have a good day.